My grandson called me at 5 in the morning and said, "Grandpa, please, do not wear your red jacket today." I asked him why, and he replied with a trembling voice, "You will understand soon." At 9, I was supposed to take the morning bus. When I arrived at the bus stop, I froze at the sight of what was happening there. The phone rang at exactly 5 in the morning. I know this because I was already awake, sitting in my rocking chair by the window, watching the darkness slowly yield to the dawn. At 67 years old, sleep comes in fragments now, scattered like the pieces of a puzzle I can no longer put together. The old ranch house creaked around me, those familiar sounds of an ancient build I had known my entire life. When I saw Mike's name on the screen, my heart skipped a beat. My grandson never called at this hour. Never. "Grandpa." His voice was barely a whisper, trembling like a candle flame in the wind. "Mike. Son. What is wrong, Grandpa? You have to listen to me carefully." There was something in his tone that made my blood run cold. It was not exactly panic, but something worse. Fear mixed with sheer urgency. "Do not wear your red jacket today. Please." I looked at the coat rack by the front door, where my bright red winter jacket hung, just like every cold morning here in Texas. I had bought it 3 years ago in Austin. It was a luxury I justified because it made me visible on the dark country roads. It was for safety. "Mike, what are you talking about? Just please." "Grandpa, do not wear it. Put on anything else. Promise me. You are scaring me." "Esson, where are you? Are you okay? I cannot explain right now. You will understand soon. Promise me. Please." The line went dead. I just sat there, the phone growing cold against my ear, staring blankly at that red jacket. The house suddenly felt different, as if something had shifted within the very walls. Outside, the first roosters began their morning calls, completely indifferent to the terror creeping into my chest. I did not put on the red jacket. Instead, I grabbed my old brown coat, the one with the worn-out elbows I usually saved for working in the barn. Something in Mike's voice had triggered my grandfatherly instincts, that deep-rooted knowledge telling me to trust him without asking questions. At 9 o'clock, I walked down the long dirt driveway of the ranch to the state highway, where the morning bus stopped. I had been taking that exact same bus to town every Tuesday and Friday for the past 5 years. Ever since my wife, Mary Grace, passed away and I sold our second car. This routine had been a source of comfort. At 9:15, groceries at the market, lunch at Mrs. Higgins' diner, and back home by 3 in the afternoon. But today, there was no bus. Instead, there were state trooper cruisers, 4 of them, their light bars painting the gray morning in urgent flashes of red and blue. Yellow crime scene tape stretched all the way around the bus shelter, that simple 3-sided structure where I had waited countless times, reading my newspaper or watching the cornfields stretch out toward the horizon. Chief Peter Reynolds saw me approaching and immediately stepped forward, holding his hand up. "Mr. Neth, Robert Miller, you need to keep your distance. Please." "Peter, what happened? I need to catch the bus." "There will not be a bus this morning." "Robert." His face was incredibly grim, the wrinkles around his eyes deeper than I remembered. "We had gone to high school together 40 years ago. There was an incident." "What kind of incident?" He hesitated, glancing back at the forensics team bustling around the bus stop. "A body was discovered here this morning, right around 6 o'clock. The world tilted slightly beneath my feet. A body. We have not identified the victim yet. But..." Peter paused, his eyes searching mine. They were wearing a red jacket, bright red, Just like yours. My legs gave out. Peter grabbed my arm to steady me. Are you all right? You look pale. I need to sit down. He guided me to his cruiser and helped me into the passenger seat. Through the windshield, I could see them taking pictures of something near the shelter. A shape covered by a white tarp. Peter. Mike called me this morning at 5 o'clock. He told me not to wear my red jacket. The chief's expression shifted instantly, transforming from a concerned neighbor to a cop completely focused on an investigation. Your grandson called you. What exactly did he say? I repeated the conversation, word for word. Peter pulled out his notepad, scribbling frantically. Where is Mike right now? I do not know. He did not say. He sounded terrified. Peter, when was the last time you saw him? At Sunday dinner. 3 days ago. He seemed completely normal. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Had he really seemed normal? Or was I just too caught up in the usual family chaos to notice? Sunday dinner at the ranch was a tradition I had kept alive for 30 years. My son, Charles, his wife, Allison, and Mike would come without fail. But lately, those dinners had become tense. Allison had been pressuring me to sell the ranch and move into a retirement community in the city. She brought brochures, floor plans, financial projections. Dad, you are getting too old for this kind of heavy lifting, Charles had said, just parroting his wife's words. This property is just too big for you to handle all alone. But it was not too big. It was my entire life. Every single corner held memories of Mary Grace, of raising Charles, of those endless summers watching Mike run through the fields. Just the thought of leaving made me physically sick. Mr. Miller, a young lieutenant, approached the car. She was a woman with piercing eyes and dark hair pulled back into a tight bun. I am Lieutenant Claire Davis. I understand your grandson might have some information regarding this incident. I explained Mike's phone call all over again. She exchanged a quick look with Peter. We need to speak with Mike as soon as possible. Do you have any way to reach him? I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times. Absolutely nothing. Does he live with you? Lieutenant Davis asked. No. He lives with my son and daughter-in-law in the city. He is 19 years old. He is in college. We are going to need their address. I gave it to her, a sickening feeling growing in the pit of my stomach. What kind of trouble was Mike in? And how did he know about this dead woman before anyone else? The lieutenant's radio crackled to life. A voice muttered something about forensics and preliminary findings. Davis stepped away to answer, leaving me alone with Peter. Robert, I need to ask you something. Peter's voice was low, almost apologetic. When was the last time you wore that red jacket? Yesterday. I put it on to go into town for my poker game. And how many people would know that you wear it regularly? The question hit me like a bucket of ice with water. Everyone, I suppose. I wear it every single time I go out. It is distinct. That is exactly why I bought it. And who, specifically, would know that you catch the bus on Tuesday and Friday mornings right at this stop? My family. The other regular commuters. Mrs. Higgins at the diner. Half the town. Probably. My voice was rising now. Peter. What? Are you insinuating I am? Not insinuating anything right now. But someone was murdered here, wearing a jacket identical to yours, standing in the exact spot where you would normally be. And your grandson warned you to stay away. The sheer weight of the implications crashed over me like a tidal wave. Someone had tried to kill me. And somehow, impossibly, Mike had known. Peter's radio erupted in a burst of static and frantic voices. He pressed it to his ear, his jaw tightening. Repeat that. He commanded into the mic. More static, followed by a voice I could not make out. Peter looked at me. and I saw something in his eyes that made my heart completely stop. It was no longer just concern, it was suspicion. Robert, I need to ask you to come down to the station with me. Why? What is going on? That body. We just identified her using her cell phone. Who is she? Peter's jaw clenched. Her name was Sophie Wright. She worked at the county property records office in the city. And, according to her phone logs, she has been in contact with your grandson, Mike, dozens of times over the last 2 weeks. The morning suddenly felt colder than any Texas winter I had ever lived through. Is there something else? I asked. Peter nodded slowly. We found a document in the pocket of her jacket. It is a property deed. For your ranch. That is impossible. This ranch has been in my family for 4 generations. There is no dispute over the deed. Robert, this deed is from last month, and according to the paperwork, you signed the property over to your son Charles and his wife Allison. That is absolute madness. I would never do that. The signature looks entirely authentic. The notary has a copy on file. Officially recorded 3 weeks ago. The world began to spin. I gripped the door handle to keep myself upright. I did not sign anything. Peter, you have to believe me. I would never give up this ranch. But even as I said the words, a sickening doubt crept in. Had I signed something without realizing it, Allison was always sliding papers in front of me during Sunday dinners. She would ask me to sign insurance updates, tax documents, medical forms. She worked in real estate. Shuffling paperwork was what she did for a living. She had tricked me into signing away my own home. We are going to get this sorted out, Peter said, but his voice lacked any real conviction. Right now. I need you to come with me. We need to take your official statement. And we desperately need to find Mike. As I stood up to follow him, I caught a flash of movement out of the corner of my eye. A car was parked about 50 yards down the highway, partially hidden behind a cluster of trees. It was a dark blue sedan. The engine was running. I could see the exhaust curling into the freezing air. And, sitting behind the wheel, watching us intently, was my daughter-in-law. Allison, our eyes locked across the distance. She did not wave. She did not smile. She just stared at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was ice cold, calculating, and almost triumphant. Then, she shifted the car into gear and sped off down the road. Peter, I said quietly, I think I know who might have the answers about this property deed, but I do not think you are going to like what we are about to uncover. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and dusty paperwork. I had only been there twice before in my life. Once, 30 years ago, when Mary Grace reported our tractor stolen, and another time to renew the permit for the rifle I kept in the barn for coyotes. I had never been there as a witness, never linked to a homicide. Peter put me in a small interrogation room with pale green walls and a large mirror I knew was fake. Lieutenant Davis sat across from me, placing a digital voice recorder on the table between us. Mr. Miller, I need you to tell me everything again. Every single detail about Mike's phone call. I repeated everything, but this time I forced my brain to dig deeper. The background noise during Mike's call. Was there something else? Traffic. Maybe or wind. No. It was water. Rushing water. Like a creek or a river. He was not calling from his house. I could hear water in the background. I said, he was somewhere outside. Davis jotted that down. Your grandson is 19. Does he have any history of getting into trouble? Never. Mike is a great kid. He is studying engineering in college. He works part-time at a local hardware store. He has never even gotten a speeding ticket in his life. What is his relationship with his parents? Like I hesitated, this was a deeply private family matter. But a young woman was dead. And Mike was missing. His father? My son, Charles. He works long hours at an insurance firm. He is not around very much. And Allison. I chose my next words very carefully. Allison is heavily focused on appearances, on social status. Mike and she have had a lot of tension lately. Tension over what? Over me. Over the ranch. Allison wants me to sell it and move into an assisted living facility. Mike believes I should keep it. They have been having screaming matches about it during our Sunday dinners. Davis leaned forward across the table. Mr. Miller, I have to ask you directly. Do you believe your daughter-in-law could be involved in forging this property deed? Before I could even answer, the door swung open. Peter walked in, his face looking like thunder. Robert, your son is here. He is demanding to see you. And he brought a lawyer. They are saying you should not answer any more questions without your own legal counsel present. My stomach tied itself in knots. Why would I need a lawyer? I am the victim here. Peter and Davis exchanged heavy glances. Davis spoke with extreme caution. Mr. Miller, there are some complications. The forged deed. If it is indeed forged, it bears your actual signature. Sophie Wright, the victim, worked at the records office and had access to all the official filings. And your grandson, the one who called to warn you about the murder. He has vanished. What are you trying to say? I am saying that some folks might look at this and think you were involved in a scheme that went terribly wrong. That may be you, Mike, and Sophie Wright were all in on this together. And someone double-crossed someone else. The accusation hit me right in the chest like a physical punch. That is absolutely ridiculous. Why would I forge a deed giving away my own property unless you were not really giving it away? Davis replied calmly. Unless it was all part of an elaborate plan to frame someone else. Like your daughter-in-law, for instance. No, absolutely not. I would never do such a thing. The door burst open again, and Charles stormed into the room. A slick man in an expensive suit followed right behind him. Dad, do not say another word. My son looked completely disheveled. His usually perfect hair was a mess. His tie was loose around his neck. This is John Sterling. He is a criminal defense attorney. We are leaving right now. Charles. I do not need a criminal defense lawyer. I have not done a single thing wrong. Dad, a woman is dead. The police think Mike might be involved. And Allison just told me about some insane property deed. We have to protect ourselves. Protect ourselves from what John Sterling smoothly intervened. Mr. Miller, I strongly advise you to refuse any further questioning without counsel present. Chief, Lieutenant, we are entirely done here, unless you are formally charging my client with a crime. Peter shifted uncomfortably. Robert is free to go, but we will definitely need to bring him in for further questioning. As Sterling ushered me out of the room, I caught Davis's eye. She was watching me with an expression I could not read. Was it suspicion, curiosity, something else? Out in the parking lot, Charles grabbed my arm. Dad, what have you gotten yourself into, me, Charles? I am not into anything. Somebody tried to assassinate me this morning. That poor girl is dead because she was wearing a coat exactly like mine. That is insane. Who on earth would want to kill you? I looked him dead in the eye. Did you know anything about this property deed, the one that supposedly transfers the ranch over to you and Allison? His face lost all its color. What? No. What deed? The one filed at the county courthouse 3 weeks ago, bearing my signature, handing my entire estate over to you and your wife. That is impossible. I would never... He stopped mid-sentence, his expression shifting rapidly. Allison. What about Allison? She has been badgering me for months to force you to sell. She says the ranch sits right in the middle of a prime development zone. She claimed we could make millions subdividing the land. I told her no. I told her you would never agree to it. But she just kept pushing. He ran a shaking hand through his hair. You do not really think she would forge something like that, do you? Your wife was parked down the road watching the crime scene this morning. Charles. She was sitting in her car on the highway, just watching. And the second she saw me, she took off. John Sterling stepped between us. Mr. Miller, Charles, I really think the two of you should take this conversation somewhere much more private, and I suggest you both refrain from throwing accusations around until we actually have the facts. Charles drove me back to the house in total silence. The old ranch looked different to me now. It was like I was seeing it through the eyes of a stranger. Someone desperately wanted to take it from me. They had killed, or tried to kill, just to get their hands on it. As we rolled up the driveway, I noticed another car parked by the barn. It was Allison's white Nissan. What the hell is she doing here? Charles's voice was tight with anger. We found her in my kitchen, aggressively rummaging through my filing cabinet. What on earth are you doing? Allison spun around, startled. Her dyed blonde hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place. Her makeup was absolutely flawless. Despite the early hour, she had always been beautiful in this very calculated way. She looked like a magazine ad for suburban success. Charles, I was looking for paperwork to help your dad. Legal documents, insurance forms, anything we could use to prove he never signed that deed. Helping him by breaking into his home and tearing through his personal files. I have a key. Your father gave it to me years ago for emergencies. I took a step forward, keeping my voice dangerously steady. Allison, you forged my signature on a property deed. Her face completely transformed. That carefully painted mask of concern cracked wide open, revealing something freezing cold underneath. Of course, I did not do that. How dare you accuse me after everything I have done for this family? All those times I tried to help you make rational decisions about your future. Help me. Or help yourself. You are becoming paranoid. This ranch is a massive burden you cannot handle anymore. I was only trying to protect you from yourself. Protect me by stealing my land. I did not steal anything, her voice spiked. Sharp and brittle. But maybe if someone did forge that paperwork, they were actually doing you a massive favor. This place is falling apart. You are falling apart. How long is it going to be before you trip down those stairs and die all alone? And nobody finds your body for days. Charles grabbed her arm. Allison, that is enough. She violently yanked her arm away. No, I am not going to stop. Somebody needs to tell him the harsh reality. He clings to this dirty ranch like it is a lifeboat. But it is actually an anchor dragging him down. It is dragging all of us down. Get out, I said calmly. Excuse me, get out of my house. Right now. Allison's eyes narrowed into slits. Fine, but you need to understand something. Robert, that deed is perfectly legal and completely binding. I saw the paperwork at the county clerk's office this morning. Your signature is notarized. It is witnessed. Whether your failing memory remembers signing it or not, you signed it. And in this state, a properly executed transfer of real estate is rock solid. Even if the old man claims he did not understand what he was looking at. How do you know all that? Charles asked, his voice slow and heavy. She smiled, and it was as sharp as a razor blade. Because I did my research. Obviously, I work in real estate. Charles. Remember, I know property law, inside and out. After she slammed the front door, Charles collapsed into a kitchen chair, burying his face in his hands. I am so sorry. Dad, I had no idea. I swear to God, I did not know. I just blindly believed her. Charles had always been weak. He was easily swayed, but never truly malicious. His mother used to joke that Charles was born without a spine, that he just bent in whatever direction the wind blew the hardest. We have to find Mike, I said. The police are hunting for him. That is exactly what terrifies me. Mike called to warn you. He basically saved your life. But now he is on the run, which means he is terrified of someone or something. My cell phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text message from an unknown number. Grandpa, please forgive me. I had no idea it would go this far. Meet me at the old lumber mill at midnight. Come alone. He is watching you. I shoved the screen toward Charles. His face went even paler than before. You cannot go out there. It could be a setup. It is Mike. You do not know that for sure. It could be anybody typing that. But I knew it was him. The message ended with something only Mike and I would ever understand. Remember the summer of the strawberries. The summer Mike was 7 years old. We had planted a huge strawberry patch together right behind the old barn. When the first harvest came in, we ate so many, we both ended up violently sick. It became our inside joke. It became our secret code for trust me. I am going, I said. Then I am riding with you. No. The text explicitly says to come alone. Dad. Please. Charles. For once in your miserable life, trust that your old man can handle a situation. My voice came out a lot harsher than I meant it to. Your wife is knee-deep in a criminal conspiracy. Your son is in extreme danger. And someone tried to put a bullet in me this morning. I no longer have the luxury of playing it safe. He left the house reluctantly, making me swear on my life that I would call him the exact second I got back. After his taillights faded down the dirt driveway, I sat in the growing dark, running through my options. The old lumber mill was about 10 miles away. It was an abandoned processing plant sitting right on the riverbed, shuttered over 2 decades ago. Teenagers used it for bonfire parties. Mike used to sneak out there during high school. I even found empty beer cans in the back of his truck once. But why meet there? And why wait until midnight? I tried dialing the unknown number back. It went straight to a generic voicemail. At 11:30, I grabbed a heavy flashlight and climbed into my truck. I made sure to wear the brown barn coat instead of the red one. It was a pitch black, moonless night. The sky was thick with storm clouds threatening a downpour. The second my tires hit the paved highway, a pair of headlights flicked on in my rearview mirror. Someone had been sitting in the dark, waiting on the shoulder of the road. They tailed me. They maintained a perfect, consistent distance all the way to the interstate. Those headlights stayed glued to me for 8 solid miles. They never rode my bumper, but they never fell behind, either. I realized quickly this was professional surveillance. It was not some amateur riding my tail or losing sight of me at intersections. Whoever was behind that wheel knew exactly what they were doing. I thought about dialing Charles. I thought about calling Chief Reynolds. But Mike's text had been crystal clear. Come alone. And dropping the strawberry code meant he was in a life-or-death situation. The kind of danger where dragging cops into it might get him killed. 3 miles from the old mill, I made a split-second decision. There was a blind turnoff coming up, a narrow logging trail that cut straight through the dense state woods. Mary Grace and I used to drive down it when we hunted for wild mushrooms. It looped back to the main highway about 5 miles further south. I killed my headlights, cranked the wheel, and plunged into the tree line, accelerating into total darkness. My heavy truck violently bounced over the deep ruts and potholes. Low branches shrieked down the side panels. In my mirrors, I saw the headlights of the tail car fly past the hidden turnoff. Then, a massive flare of red brake lights hit the pavement as they realized their target had just vanished into thin air. I kept my foot buried in the gas pedal. The forest completely closed in on both sides. Driving totally blind, I navigated entirely by muscle memory and the faint slivers of moonlight bleeding through the heavy canopy. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The old logging road spat me back out onto the asphalt several miles south of whoever was hunting me. I idled on the shoulder, watching the dark road for any sweeping headlights. Nothing. I had shaken them. I took the longest possible route to the mill, doubling back down crumbling county backroads, constantly checking my mirrors to make sure I was clean. By the time I killed the engine in the overgrown dirt lot, it was 10 minutes past midnight. The decaying lumber mill loomed against the stormy sky like a giant, rotting tombstone. 4 stories of black, waterlogged timber and shattered glass. The river tore right past the foundations, swollen and violent from the spring melt. The roar of the water consumed the night. I clicked on my flashlight, its beam slicing through the darkness as I approached the gutted loading bay. "Mike!" I called out softly. There was no answer, just the raging river and the wind howling through the hollow structure. I stepped inside. The concrete floor was littered with debris, broken glass, rusted machinery, and layers of spray paint covered the damp walls. My flashlight beam swept over a set of metal stairs. I climbed them as quietly as an old man could, testing my weight on every rusted grate. I found him on the second floor. Mike was hunched over a wooden crate. In the harsh glare of the flashlight, his face looked completely hollowed out. His eyes were bloodshot from a mix of crying and sheer exhaustion. My boy looked like he had aged 5 years in a matter of days. "Grandpa." His voice completely cracked. "I am so sorry. I am so sorry." I dropped the flashlight and rushed over, pulling him into a tight embrace. He was shivering violently. "It is okay. Isen, no matter what happened, we are going to fix this." "No, we cannot. Grandpa, I did something unforgivable. I helped her. I swear to God, I had no idea it would go this far." He choked on a heavy sob. "Help who, Allison?" "No." He pulled back, wiping his swollen eyes with his sleeve. "Not Allison. Sophie. Sophie Wright. The girl they found dead at the bus stop. Tell me exactly what happened." I said. The confession poured out of him in panicked, broken fragments, the words tripping over each other. 3 months ago, Mike had met Sophie at a coffee shop near his college campus. She was beautiful, sharp, and incredibly charming. She was 28 and had a stable job down at the county property records office. They started dating. She seemed absolutely flawless. "Grandpa," she told me, "she deeply understood me. She said she understood how I felt about you and the legacy of the ranch. She claimed her own grandmother had lost her family farm, that some ruthless real estate developers had swindled her out of it." "Mike, what exactly did you do?" She started asking highly specific questions about the ranch, about the property lines, the original deeds, the legal history. She swore she wanted to help you, that she could use her connections to put legal ironclad protections in place so nobody could ever steal it. She worked in the system. She knew how to run the background searches. The air in my lungs turned to ice. "You gave her access to the ranch documents. I thought I was securing your future. She said she could put a permanent fraud alert on the title. But then—" His voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "Last week, I saw her meeting with Allison at a high-end restaurant downtown. I followed her. Grandpa, I sat in my truck and watched them talk intensely for 2 solid hours. And when I finally confronted Sophie about it, she just laughed in my face. 'What do you mean?' she laughed. She told me I was nothing but a useful idiot. She admitted that Allison had secretly hired her months before we even bumped into each other. Every single thing. The cute meetup, the dates, the fake emotional connection. The entire relationship was an orchestrated con. Her only job was to get close to me. Squeeze every detail out about your habits and the ranch, and help Allison forge the total transfer of ownership. The level of manipulation was staggering. It was deeply calculated and utterly heartless. But why would anyone brutally murder her, I asked. Because she got greedy. Mike stood up, pacing like a caged animal in the tight space. Sophie bragged to me that night. She told me she demanded a massive payout from Allison. A lot more money. She said she kept backup files of everything. The forged signature, the encrypted emails, undeniable proof of the entire conspiracy. She was planning to blackmail Allison for the rest of her life. And Allison had her killed. I do not know for sure, but that is why I warned you about the jacket. Sophie called me at 4:30 yesterday morning. She was completely hysterical, sobbing into the phone, screaming that a man was following her. She confessed that she stole your red jacket right out of your closet during Sunday dinner. That is why she was wearing it. Her plan was to meet you at the bus stop, confess the whole operation, and hand over the evidence to save herself. But she was terrified. Grandpa. She said if anything happened to her out there, I had to warn you. And then the line just went completely dead. I sank down heavily onto a crate, trying to process the sheer gravity of it all. So, Sophie was assassinated right before she could reach me and expose Allison's entire empire. But I do not believe Allison pulled the trigger herself. I mumbled. Mike reached deep into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, metallic flash drive. Sophie slipped this to me 2 days ago, right before the whole thing blew up. She claimed it was her insurance policy. Hard copies of the forged titles, all the deleted emails between her and Allison, and secretly recorded phone calls. Did you plug it in? Did you read what is on it? I opened a few folders. Grandpa, it is worse than we thought. Allison forged your name on 6 major documents. Not just the property transfer. She took out massive loan applications. She drafted a full medical power of attorney. She even fabricated a last will and testament. A will, leaving 100% of your estate to Charles and her. Backdated 6 months ago. His hands shook violently as he dropped the thumb drive into my palm. And there is a lot more. There are email chains about hiring a professional, a guy paid specifically to ensure you had a tragic, fatal accident out on the ranch right after the title officially cleared. The drafty lumber mill suddenly felt like a walk-in freezer. Allison was actively putting out a hit on my life. The emails never use her real name. They used heavy encryption and coded language. But Sophie knew exactly who was typing them. She kept a massive ledger of the whole operation. Mike's eyes were wide with pure panic. But here is the part I cannot figure out. The final folder on this drive is locked behind military-grade encryption. I cannot break into it. And there is a hidden file that just will not execute. It acts like it is totally corrupted. Sophie bragged that it was the smoking gun to burn Allison down. But I am locked out. I rolled the small metal drive between my calloused fingers. We have to hand this straight over to Chief Reynolds. New Grandpa, you are not listening to me. The cops are on the payroll. What, in the emails? Sophie explicitly mentions paying off law enforcement, a dirty cop inside the state police department, a guy who helped grease the wheels on the fake deed, making sure it looked perfectly clean in the system. We have no idea who it is. It could be literally anyone with a badge. The image of Peter Reynolds flashed through my mind. My old high school buddy, a man I had trusted for decades. But no, it could not possibly be Peter. Could it? There is one more thing, Mike whispered. This morning, right after I saw the news that Sophie was dead, I drove over to her apartment building. Her front door was kicked in. The whole place had been completely trashed. Somebody had tossed the unit searching for something. Furniture flipped, walls torn open. But they missed this. He handed me a crumpled piece of paper. It was a photocopied bank statement. It was one of Allison's private checking accounts. 2 weeks ago, she had made a direct cash withdrawal of $5,000. Blood money. I muttered into the dark. A payoff for Sophie to keep quiet. Or the down payment for the guy who put a bullet in her. Maybe both. Mike grabbed me fiercely by the shoulders. Grandpa, we have to run. Both of us. We take the drive. And we disappear off the map until we can find a federal agent we can actually trust. I am not running away from my own home. Then you are going to die out here. You do not get it. Allison has already crossed the line into murder. She will not stop hunting until you are in the ground, and she owns the dirt on top of you. Footsteps echoed below us. Heavy boots, stomping on the rotted wooden planks. We both froze instantly. Mike killed his flashlight. I immediately snapped mine off. In the sudden, suffocating darkness, I could hear multiple sets of boots. At least 3 grown men. Mr. Miller. A voice called out into the echoing mill. It was not Peter's voice. It was someone much younger. We know you are up there. We just want to talk to you. Mike grabbed my sleeve and yanked me toward the back wall of the second floor, pushing me toward a heavy iron door I had not noticed. We crept silently into what looked like an old foreman's office. Broken windows looked down at the raging river 30 feet below. There is a rusted fire escape. Mike whispered directly into my ear, right on the other side of this wall. But before we could take another step, the office door violently swung open. A massive man stood silhouetted against the ambient glow from the main floor. He was wearing the crisp uniform of the state police. Mr. Miller, please, we really just want to have a conversation. I am Deputy Richard White. Chief Reynolds dispatched me out here to find you. You stay exactly where you are. I barked. My voice sounded infinitely steadier than my shaking hands felt. Sir, your son Charles formally reported you missing. We have been scouring the county for you for hours. You are not in any danger. We are just here to secure your safety. If that is the truth, why did you bring an armed tactical squad out here? Why are you sneaking up on an old man in an abandoned factory in the middle of the night? Deputy White's posture visibly shifted. In the gloom, I could not read his eyes, but his hand subtly drifted toward his holster. Because a sickeningly sweet female voice echoed from behind the cop. We had to be absolutely certain you followed the rules and came alone. Allison stepped out from the shadows. She looked completely different. Her blonde hair was tied back severely. She wore 0 makeup. She was dressed in dark tactical clothing and heavy combat boots. She was no longer the polished real estate agent who smiled at my Sunday dinner table. She looked like a highly trained predator. Hello, Robert, she said pleasantly. I believe my stepson is holding onto a little piece of property that rightfully belongs to me. Deputy White stepped to the side, and I saw his hand firmly resting on the grip of his service weapon, not drawn, but entirely ready. Mike shoved himself in front of me, shielding my body with his own. You stay the hell away from him, Mike. Mike. Allison shook her head with mock sadness. You really should have stayed out of the grown-ups' business. Sophie always said you were sweet, but incredibly naive. I am really starting to see her point. Did you murder her? Mike screamed. Of course I did not. Her smile was something out of a nightmare. I would never get my own hands dirty doing something so utterly blue-collar. That is exactly what independent contractors are for. Unfortunately, Sophie's termination became an absolute business necessity. She got far too ambitious for her pay grade. She mistakenly thought she was ready to play in the big leagues. And are you going to assassinate us too, both of us? Why on earth would I do a messy thing like that? You are going to sign the final quitclaim deed to the ranch right here tonight, completely of your own free will. Deputy White here will act as an official witness. And then, unfortunately, you will suffer a tragic, fatal car accident on the drive back. An old man, driving alone in the dark on dangerous rural roads. These terrible accidents happen all the time. People know we are out here. Do they really? Robert, your pathetic son thinks you went to bed hours ago. Chief Reynolds assumes you are locked safely inside your house. Not a single soul knows about this little family meeting, except the people standing in this exact room. She held out her hand. Palm up. Now. Hand over the flash drive. And let's make this quick and painless. Mike's hand closed tightly around mine. I felt the cold, hard weight of the thumb drive being pressed into my palm. And in that split second, I realized something. A massive, glaring flaw that Allison had completely overlooked in her arrogance. There is just one major problem with your flawless plan, I said, my voice eerily calm. Oh, and what exactly is that? You look at me and see a helpless old man. You assume I would just passively let this happen. Allison, I have run a Texas cattle ranch for 40 brutal years. I have survived historic droughts, massive floods, 3 economic collapses, and the devastating loss of my wife. I have gone head-to-head with predatory bankers, fought off corporate developers, and kept a business running that men twice your age swore would bankrupt me. I slowly pulled my cell phone from my coat pocket, turning the bright screen so she could clearly see it in the dark. The microphone is live. I have been recording audio since the absolute second Mike started confessing downstairs, and I am smart enough to make sure this uploads instantly to the cloud. Allison's face drained of all its color. Turning completely white, Deputy White ripped his service weapon from its holster. And that was the exact moment a tactical breaching ram took the office door right off its heavy iron hinges. Chief Peter Reynolds stepped through the smoke like an avenging angel. 3 heavily armed state troopers flooding in right behind him with their assault rifles raised. The look of absolute fury on his face when he saw his own deputy pulling a gun on an unarmed old man is something I will take to my grave. Richard, do not even think about moving a muscle. Hands on your head. Right now, Deputy White froze in terror. He slowly raised his empty hands. Dropping his gun to the concrete floor, Allison spun around and made a desperate break for the fire escape window. A massive trooper tackled her against the brick wall, pinning her arms behind her back. Get your hands off of me, this is police harassment. I only came out here to search for my father-in-law. The man is clearly mentally unstable, and he is screaming insane accusations. Save your breath, Peter growled, his voice echoing off the walls. We have been listening to every single word out of your mouth for the last 10 minutes. He held up his own cell phone, showing an active, glowing audio call screen. Mr. Miller called me 20 minutes ago. He told me exactly where he was heading and exactly what he suspected you were up to. You just broadcast your entire murder confession live over an open police frequency. The pure, unadulterated rage twisting Allison's beautiful face was the stuff of absolute nightmares. You stupid old fool. Do you really think you have won? You have absolutely no idea what you have just done. Get them both out of my sight. Peter ordered the troopers. Charge them with murder in the 1st degree, conspiracy to wire fraud, attempted homicide, and bribing a public official. Read them their rights. As the heavily armed officers dragged them out in handcuffs, Allison turned back to look at me one final time. She did not scream. She did not say a word. She just gave me a long, dead stare, and I stared right back at her, refusing to blink. until they hauled her out into the stormy night. The mill fell silent after she left. Only the constant roar of the river and Mike's ragged breathing beside me remained. Grandpa. How? When did you call the chief? I sent him a text from the truck, telling him I was meeting you, but suspected a trap. I asked him to track my phone and listen in. I squeezed his hand. I trust Peter. I went to high school with him. Remember, he is a good man. Peter came back inside, his face looking exhausted. Robert, you took a massive risk. I know, but I needed Allison to confess. And she did. She confessed to conspiracy and fraud. But she is right about one thing. We still cannot prove she murdered Sophie Wright. She was careful. She used middlemen. The recording you got tonight helps. But a good defense attorney will argue she was just playing along, trying to protect herself from Deputy White. And Deputy White is already trying to cut a deal. He says Allison paid him $5,000 to help file the fraudulent deed and look the other way. But he swears he knew nothing about the murder. Do you believe him? Peter hesitated. I do not know. Richard has been on the force for 8 years, with a clean record until now. But $5,000 can make people do things they never thought they would do. Mike held up the flash drive. Chief, there is more evidence on here. Recordings. 2 documents. But part of it is encrypted. Sophie said it was the most important part. But I cannot access it. Our cyber team will take a look at it. Maybe they can break the encryption. Peter looked at me dead serious. Robert, you and Mike need to be extremely careful over the next few days. If Allison has other people working for her, people we do not know about yet, you could still be in danger. I am not leaving my ranch. I figured as much. I will leave a cruiser watching your driveway tonight. As we left the mill, the dawn was breaking over the hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, beautiful and terrible, just like everything that had happened. Mike came home with me, and neither of us said much. When we pulled up to the ranch, I saw Charles's car already parked there, sitting at an angle like he had arrived in a blind rush. He met us at the front door, his face completely pale. Dad. Mike, thank God. You are both okay. The chief called me an hour ago. He told me everything that went down. He looked at his son. Mike, I am so sorry. I should have seen what Allison was doing. I should have protected both of you. Dad. Mike said softly. Let me finish. Charles insisted. Your mother tried to tell me. She tried to warn me that Allison was pushing too hard about your grandfather's ranch. But I refused to see it. I was weak. I am weak. His voice completely broke. My wife is a murderer, and I was entirely too blind to even notice. I touched his arm gently. Charles, you could not have known. Could I not, Dad? Be honest with me. How many times over the years did I choose Allison over you? How many Sunday dinners did I sit there and let her insult you, pressure you, and make you feel small? How many times did I call you irrational when you were just trying to protect what was rightfully yours? The truth hung heavy in the air between us. Too many times. Too many years choosing to keep the peace with his wife over loyalty to his father. We cannot change the past, I finally said. But we can do better from here on out. Inside, I brewed a pot of coffee while Charles and Mike sat at the kitchen table. The house felt different now. It felt violated. But at the same time, reclaimed. Allison had been here, digging through my things, trying to steal from me. But she had failed. Dad, I have to ask you something, Charles said. That deed she forged. Is the ranch really in danger? I do not know. Peter says his department will help me contest it, but it could tie us up for months or even years in court. And Allison was right about one thing. Texas property law is incredibly complicated. If a deed looks legitimate on paper, if it is properly notarized and filed, it can be extremely difficult to overturn. I will testify. I will tell the judge I never authorized that transfer, that I knew absolutely nothing about it. That might not be enough. You are her husband. Her lawyers could argue you are just trying to cover your tracks. Mike picked up his phone. What about the encrypted files on the flash drive? Maybe there is something in there proving the deed is a fake. Maybe. But we will not know until the cyber team breaks the encryption. I sipped my coffee, thinking hard. Something else was bothering me. Sophie Wright worked at the county records office for 3 years. That is a long time. What if this was not the first property she and Allison targeted? Charles's eyes went wide. You think they have done this before? Allison is highly skilled and very experienced. The way she organized all of this, the coded emails, the middlemen. This feels like a well-oiled machine. We have to tell the chief right now, Charles said, reaching for his phone. Hold on, I said, grabbing his wrist. If we tell Peter right now, he has to open a formal report. He starts an official investigation. That could take months. Meanwhile, Allison's lawyers tie us up in civil court. The competency hearing moves forward, and we lose the ranch. So, what do? We use what we know. We force Allison into making a fatal mistake. I checked the clock. 6 hours had passed since Allison's arrest. 18 hours remained on her ultimatum. Mike, can you access the corporate registry for Allison's real estate firm? Maybe they should be public records. But I would need some time. We do not have time. Can you try or not? His fingers were already flying across his laptop keyboard. I can try. While he worked, I dialed Peter. Robert. Are you all right? I am fine. Peter. I need a massive favor. That competency hearing Allison's lawyers filed. When is it scheduled? Tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. They fast-tracked it. They argued you are an immediate danger to yourself and others. 24 hours. Less time than I thought. Who was the presiding judge? Judge Michael Dunn. I knew that name. Judge Dunn had been settling land disputes in this county for 15 years. He was tough, but fair. I had met him once at a charity auction years ago. Can you get me a private meeting with him before the hearing, Robert? That is highly irregular. His clerk would never allow it. Peter, please. I am not asking you to influence him. I just need 10 minutes to present some information. Information that is extremely relevant to the case. He stayed dead silent for a long moment. What kind of information? The kind that proves Allison Miller has been systematically defrauding and murdering elderly property owners for at least 6 years. The kind that shows this competency hearing is just another weapon in her arsenal. Do you have hard proof? I will have it by tomorrow morning. I will make a call. No promises. Mike looked up from his glowing screen. His face was pale. Grandpa, I got into the real estate firm's public filings. You need to see this. He pulled up a massive web of shell companies and holdings, all tracing straight back to one name, Allison Marie Miller. But there was another name buried deep in the paperwork. Listed as a silent partner, John Sterling, the slick defense attorney Charles had brought down to the police station. Oh, no. Charles gasped. Sterling works directly with her. He was never my lawyer. He was hers. He was only there to observe, I said, a sick realization washing over me, to see exactly what we knew, what evidence we were holding. And then he reported every single word right back to Allison. Mike clicked through more files. There is more. His law firm is listed as the legal representative for all of the company's property acquisitions. He has been in on this scam from the very beginning, which means every word we said at the station, every piece of evidence we brought up, Allison knew about it within hours. Charles collapsed back into his chair. I let him in. I thought I was protecting you. But I just handed our entire playbook over to Allison. You did not know, Charles. But I should have. We need to stay focused. I turned to my grandson. Can you print all of this? Every single document showing the link between Allison, the lawyer, and the shell companies. I am already on it. My cell phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number again. I answered and put it on speaker. Hello? Robert. Allison's voice was silky smooth and completely confident. I assume you got my little message. I got it. And my proposal, I am still thinking it over. Let me help you decide. I am sitting in my lawyer's office right now, looking at some extremely interesting paperwork. Do you know what a medical power of attorney is? Robert, my chest froze solid. Among the documents I filed with the court, there is a power of attorney you signed 3 months ago. It gives me absolute control over your financial and medical decisions. If you are declared mentally incompetent, which, after tomorrow's hearing, you absolutely will be, they will have no choice but to appoint a legal guardian, most likely me, since I am immediate family and already hold the paperwork. I never signed any such thing. Your signature says otherwise. Fully notarized and witnessed, it is very official. And as soon as the judge sees how terribly confused you are, a rambling old man making wild accusations of murder, screaming about grand conspiracies, behaving completely erratically, he will not have any other option. Judge Dunn is a reasonable man. He will see right through your sick game. Judge Dunn will see a deeply concerned daughter-in-law trying to help her aging father-in-law, who is clearly suffering from paranoid delusions. He will see police reports of you luring people out to abandoned buildings in the dead of night. He will hear your baseless accusations against me, a highly respected businesswoman with a spotless reputation. Your reputation is built entirely on fraud and murder. Prove it. Her voice turned razor sharp. You have absolutely nothing. Robert, those encrypted files on the drive, my IT guys broke into them 2 days ago. Anything remotely compromising was permanently wiped. That flash drive Mike is holding is completely worthless. Mike's eyes went wide with panic, but I kept my voice dead level. If that is the truth, then why are you calling me because I am giving you one final chance to do things the easy way? Sign the ranch over. Withdraw all your insane accusations. Admit to the police that you have been feeling confused and stressed. Do that, and I will let you live out your remaining years in a very nice retirement home. You will be comfortable, safe, cared for, and if I refuse, then, after tomorrow's hearing, when I have full power of attorney, I will have you committed to a psychiatric facility for a thorough evaluation. It happens all the time with seniors who become delusional. Those evaluations can take months. Meanwhile, I will sell the ranch, liquidate your assets, and there will be absolutely nothing left for you to fight over. You will spend whatever time you have left rotting in an institution, while your precious land is paved over and turned into a subdivision called Texas Meadows. She had thought of everything, every angle, every possibility, except for one. Allison, can I ask you something? What did Sophie beg for right before you had her killed? A long, freezing silence on the line. I did not kill Sophie. Save it. I know all about Lucy Pettit, Sophie's grandmother. I know about the Pettit farm. I know about your shell companies. I know everything. Sophie learned from the absolute best. She watched you destroy her grandmother, and then she joined you. But then she got greedy, and you could not allow that. You cannot prove a single word of that. Yes, I can. I have corporate documents linking you directly to the firm. I have property records showing a clear pattern of elderly victims. I have audio recordings of you openly admitting to conspiracy. And I have one more thing. Allison, something you do not know about. What Sophie gave Mike a physical backup of her encrypted files. The real backup, not the flash drive. She was way smarter than you thought. She hid it somewhere even you could not find it. It was a bluff. A complete and total bluff. But I heard the subtle shift in Allison's breathing. You are lying. Am I? Sophie told Mike that if anything ever happened to her, he needed to look right where it all started. The place where she first met you. Do you know where that is? Allison, because Mike certainly does. Another long pause. Even if that were true, you would never get into those files. The encryption is military grade, unless you happen to have the password that Sophie handed Mike right before she died. Do you not believe me? Then why are you still on the phone? Why do you not just hang up and proceed with your brilliant plan? I let the silence hang in the air. You are terrified. Allison, terrified that, for the first time in your life, someone actually outsmarted you. That Sophie played you just as well as you play everyone else. This conversation is over. No, it is not, because I am walking into that hearing tomorrow, and I am bringing every shred of evidence I possess, every document, every recording, every link to your past victims, and I am going to dump it all right on Judge Dunn's desk, not as the confused old man you think I am, but as someone who has spent the last week becoming a certified expert on your crimes. The judge will never allow it. It is a competency hearing, not a criminal trial. Then we will just have to see about that. Will we not? 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I will be there. Will you? I hung up before she could even utter a response. Charles was staring at me in sheer disbelief. Dad. Was any of that true? Does Mike really have a backup? No. But Allison does not know that. You just declared all-out war on my wife. No. Charles. She declared war on me the second she forged my signature. I am just finishing it. I looked over at Mike. How much time do you need to figure out exactly where Sophie and Allison first met Grandpa? I do not even know where to start looking. Yes, you do. Sophie worked at the county property records office. That is where Allison would have scouted her. Find out exactly when Sophie started that job. Look at what properties Allison was moving at that exact time, and cross-reference it with Sophie's history. There is a connection. There has to be. Mike's fingers flew across the keyboard. 10 minutes later, he found it. The Pettit farm, owned by Lucy Pettit. It was listed by the real estate company exactly 6 years ago. The listing agent was Allison Miller, and the transaction was officially processed in the county records by... He looked up, his eyes wide. By Sophie Wright. It was her very first week on the job. That is where they met. That is where Allison recruited her, or where they finalized the scheme together. I grabbed my heavy coat. We need to go out there. Right now. Dad, it is 11 at night. That farm has probably already been subdivided or completely bulldozed. Either way, we have to look. If there is even a sliver of a chance Sophie hid the evidence out there, we need to find it before Allison does. Peter called back. Robert, Judge Dunn will give you exactly 15 minutes tomorrow at 1 o'clock, right before the hearing. But that is it. Do not make me regret this. You will not. Thank you. Peter. We took my truck, the three of us together, with the state trooper cruiser trailing us from a safe distance. The drive to the Pettit farm took 9 minutes down pitch-black roads past sleeping rural towns. The farm was still there, not subdivided, not demolished, just completely abandoned. The main house was a burnt-out shell, exactly like the local papers had described it years ago. But the old barn was still standing, weathered and leaning heavily, but completely intact. Why would Allison just sit on this? Charles wondered aloud. Why not tear it down and build because she could not? Mike said, scrolling rapidly on his phone. The property is permanently locked in a bitter legal dispute. Lucy Pettit's will left everything to Sophie. But Sophie formally waived her inheritance. Then other relatives stepped in and contested the estate. It has been tied up in probate court for 6 years. I said, which means nobody could lay a finger on it. Which means if Sophie hid something out here, it has been perfectly safe this entire time. We approached the looming barn with extreme caution. The massive wooden doors were hanging wide open, groaning in the harsh wind. Inside, it smelled of rotting hay and pure decay. My flashlight cut a beam through the darkness, sweeping over empty horse stalls, rusted farming equipment, and deep shadows. Where would she have hidden it? Mike asked. I thought about Sophie Wright, a young woman who had helped destroy her own grandmother, a girl who had learned to be totally ruthless and calculating, somewhere deeply personal, I said, somewhere that actually meant something to her. Mike, you said Sophie and her grandmother were incredibly close before the betrayal. According to the articles, yes. Lucy raised Sophie after her parents passed away. I walked deeper into the cavernous barn, searching, and there it was, tucked in the far back corner. A single horse stall with a name hand carved into the aged wood, North Star. Mike read. That was Sophie's horse, he said, checking his phone again. There is an old photo in one of the articles. Sophie riding a dapple gray mare named North Star. I dropped to my knees, running my calloused hands over the wooden floorboards inside the stall. One of them shifted. It was loose. Beneath it, tightly wrapped in thick, waterproof plastic, was a small metal lockbox. Inside the box rested another flash drive and a handwritten note. If you are reading this, I am probably dead. Allison Miller murdered my grandmother and manipulated me into helping her. I have been compiling hard evidence ever since, just waiting for the perfect moment. This drive contains everything. Unedited audio recordings, original source documents, undeniable proof of every single crime. The password is North Star 98. Use it to destroy her. 1998. Mike muttered. The year Sophie was born. We finally had it. Real. Tangible proof. The unencrypted files. Everything we could ever need. And then we heard the sound of heavy engines approaching. Multiple vehicles. Quick. They followed us, Charles hissed, peering through the cracks in the barn wall. 3 dark SUVs slammed into park right outside. Their blinding high beams flooded the barn. Doors slammed shut, and dark silhouettes stepped out into the glare. Allison stood dead center. She was flanked by John Sterling and 2 massive men I did not recognize. Heavy hitters. Definitely not lawyers. Robert, Allison's voice cut sharply through the cold night air. You are trespassing on private property. That is highly illegal. Whatever you just dug up in there belongs to the estate. This property belonged to Sophie Wright, I shouted back, and she left very clear instructions. Sophie is dead. I am the sole executor of her estate. Now hand over whatever you found. I do not think so. Sterling stepped forward smoothly. Mr. Miller, we can have you arrested right this second. Chief Reynolds's patrol unit is gone. We diverted them to a fake emergency call 15 miles from here. You are completely alone. You are severely outnumbered. And you are holding stolen property. I looked down at the metal box in my hands. the drive that could burn Allison's entire empire to the ground. And I just smiled. You are absolutely right about one thing, Mr. Sterling. The chief's patrol car is gone, but you are dead wrong when you say I am alone. I pulled out my cell phone and hit send on the live video stream I had been recording for the last 10 minutes. A direct feed feeding straight to Peter's phone. The State Police Dispatch. And 3 local news stations. I have been live streaming this entire encounter, I said calmly. Every single word you just said. Every threat you just issued. And right now, thousands of people are watching you. Allison, watching you admit to being the executor of Sophie's estate, a property you should have absolutely zero ties to if you were truly innocent. Watching you threaten us. Watching you bring hired muscle to intimidate an old man. Allison's face turned ghost white in the headlights. You can kill me and take this drive, I continued. But it will not matter, because in exactly 5 minutes, my grandson is going to upload the entire contents of this drive to a secure cloud server. Copies will go straight to the state police, the district attorney, and every major news outlet in Texas. It is over. Allison, you lost. The piercing wail of sirens echoed in the distance. Rapidly closing in, Allison stared at me across the dark, overgrown yard, and I finally saw something crack behind her eyes. The cold calculation, the unshakable confidence, that absolute certainty that she was always the smartest person in the room. It all shattered. She ran. Sterling and the hired muscle scattered, sprinting back toward their SUVs. But the police were already swarming the access road. Peter's cruiser led a massive convoy of state troopers, effectively sealing them in. I just stood there, gripping the small metal box, watching them take Allison down. She fought wildly, screaming endless threats and insane accusations into the night, but they slammed the cuffs on her anyway. Peter walked over to me, slowly shaking his head. Robert, that was the most reckless, insane, and bravest thing I have ever witnessed in my life. I learned from the best, I replied, thinking of Mary Grace. 67 years of life had taught me to never back down, to always push forward. The live stream, Peter asked. Mike started broadcasting the second we stepped out of the truck. Peter actually laughed out loud. You know, you probably just caused a dozen massive legal headaches for the prosecutors. But we have her dead to rights, with evidence she can never deny. He gently took the metal box from my hands. We will put this straight into evidence. We will handle all the proper processing. But Robert, thank you. You just helped us blow the lid off maybe a dozen cold cases. As they shoved her into the back of a cruiser, Allison looked at me one final time. No words, just a long, venomous stare, and I stared right back at her, refusing to blink, until the taillights disappeared into the dark. The competency hearing was immediately canceled. Judge Dunn called me personally the morning after the arrest. He apologized for the court's time being wasted and congratulated me for what he called exceptional civic courage. The medical power of attorney documents were proven to be complete forgeries, just like the property deed. Allison's entire legal strategy completely collapsed the exact second the forensics team verified Sophie's hidden cache of evidence. That flash drive contained 6 years of meticulous, damning record-keeping. Sophie had documented absolutely everything. Unedited audio of Allison, actively conspiring against elderly victims. High-resolution scans of forged signatures. Detailed financial ledgers showing massive payouts to corrupt officials. There was even a video file of Allison casually admitting to orchestrating the death of Sophie's own grandmother. Sophie Wright had been many terrible things. An accomplice, a manipulator, an accessory to murder. But in the bitter, bloody end, she had also been a desperate woman who knew she was in grave danger. A woman who tried to build an emergency exit, and ultimately paid for her crimes with her own life. The investigation exploded rapidly. Within 3 days, state law enforcement identified 11 different victims across Texas and neighboring states. Elderly property owners who had been systematically defrauded, and in 4 horrific cases, murdered. John Sterling was arrested, along with Deputy White and 2 other corrupt county officials. The district attorney called it the largest, most sophisticated elder fraud case in the history of the state. Allison Miller was denied bail at her arraignment hearing. The judge cited an extreme flight risk and the sheer gravity of the charges against her. 4 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated wire fraud, forgery of official documents, and a dozen other felony indictments. Her trial was set for 6 months out, but her new defense attorneys were already desperately trying to negotiate plea deals. With Sophie's mountain of evidence, they had absolutely no real defense to stand on. I did not exactly feel triumphant. Maybe I should have. But mostly, I just felt profoundly tired, and deeply sad for all the innocent lives Allison had casually destroyed in her endless pursuit of money and land that would never be enough to satisfy her. 2 weeks after the arrest, Charles formally filed for divorce. We were sitting at my kitchen table, the exact same table where we had eaten all those Sunday dinners. I watched my son sign the legal papers with a violently shaking hand. "I should have known," he said, for the 100th time, all those years. "I should have known, Charles. She fooled a lot of very smart people. Prosecutors, investigators, business partners. You cannot blame yourself for not seeing through a highly trained predator. But I chose her over you so many times. Every single time you tried to warn me, every time you said something felt off, I just ignored it. I made you feel like you were the problem. You tried to hold your marriage together. That is not a crime." He looked up at me, his eyes completely bloodshot. "She tried to have you murdered. Dad, my wife, the woman I shared a bed with for 20 years. She slaughtered people for their dirt, and I never suspected a thing. What does that say about me? It says that you are human. It says you desperately wanted to believe the best about someone you loved. That is not a weakness, Charles. It is hope. Misplaced hope. Maybe, but you found your real strength when it actually mattered. You stood right beside Mike and me when we needed you most. You did not run away. You did not hide. That counts for a hell of a lot." He wiped his eyes. "I want to make it up to you, however long it takes. Then start by forgiving yourself, and by being a better father to Mike. He needs you right now, more than he ever has." Mike was struggling badly. The brutal revelation that Sophie had merely used him, that their entire relationship had been a calculated manipulation, had completely gutted him. He took a semester off from college. He started seeing a therapist twice a week, and he was slowly trying to learn how to trust people again. He spent most of his time out on the ranch with me. We worked together in the barn. We repaired miles of fencing. We planned out the spring planting season. He did not talk about Sophie much, but sometimes I would catch him just staring off into the distance, totally lost in dark thoughts he could not bring himself to share. One afternoon in early March, while we were clearing out the feed shed, he finally opened up. "Grandpa, do you think I am stupid?" "What, of course not. Why on earth would you ask me that?" "Because I fell for the whole thing. Sophie looked me in the eye and told me she loved me. And I just blindly believed her. She said she wanted to protect you, and I handed her the exact tools she needed to destroy you. I was just a pawn, a useful idiot, I set down the pitchfork I was holding and sat next to him on a bale of old hay. Mike, you are 19 years old. You believed that someone you loved was telling you the truth. That is not stupidity. That is innocence. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with being innocent. But I should have seen the red flags. Sophie was personally trained by Allison, a woman who had perfected this massive con over years. She knew exactly how to manipulate people, how to manufacture trust, how to exploit your deepest emotions. Hardened, veteran investigators fell right into her traps. You are not weak because you got conned by a professional sociopath. Then why do I feel so stupid? Because trauma makes us question everything, especially ourselves. But Mike, listen to me. You saved my life. You saw right through Sophie's endgame at the most critical moment. You warned me about that red jacket. You kept that flash drive safe. You helped expose Allison's entire criminal operation. Those are not the actions of a stupid man. He sat in silence for a long time. Sometimes I miss her. It is insane. I know exactly what she was. I know what she did. But sometimes I miss the girl I thought she was. That is not insane. That is grief. You are mourning the relationship you thought you had, the future you were building in your head. It is a very real loss. How do you stop missing something that was never even real? Time, patience, and knowing deep down that you deserve something real, someone real, and one day, when you are actually ready for it, you will find exactly that. He leaned his head against my shoulder, and I put my arm around him, holding him tight, just like I used to when he was a little boy and the world seemed far too big and terrifying. The legal war over the ranch took another grueling month to fully resolve. The forged deed was officially voided by a federal judge. Every single one of Allison's fraudulent claims was dismissed with extreme prejudice. The property remained mine, free and clear, just as it had been for 4 generations. But more importantly, the state attorney's office seized every single one of Allison's assets to compensate the victims' families. Her massive house, her luxury cars, her bank accounts. All of it was seized. The real estate firm was permanently dissolved, and its assets were liquidated to pay out massive restitutions. I attended one of the final restitution hearings. There were dozens of families packed into that courtroom. People who had lost mothers, fathers, and grandparents to Allison's bloody schemes. An elderly man who had lost his wife. A woman exactly my age who had buried her sister. We did not speak much to each other, but we shared a profound, silent bond. The heavy knowledge that we had survived, that justice had been agonizingly slow, but it had finally arrived. A woman approached me out in the hallway afterward. She was in her early 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair. Mr. Miller, I am Anna Pettit. My mother was Lucy Pettit. I am Sophie's aunt. I shook her hand cautiously. I am so incredibly sorry for your loss. For both of them, thank you. I just wanted you to know. I am glad you were the one who finally stopped her. My mother deserved so much better than what happened to her. And Sophie, her voice wavered and broke. Sophie was a good girl once. A long time ago, before Allison dug her claws into her. I lay awake thinking about who Sophie could have become if she had never crossed paths with that monster. Your niece saved my life in the end, I told her. The evidence she quietly gathered, the physical backup she hid away. Without all of that, Allison would still be walking free today. Sophie was always incredibly meticulous. Even when she was doing terrible things, she was highly methodical about it. Anna smiled, a deeply sad smile. Maybe it was her twisted way of trying to maintain some scrap of control, some tiny shred of dignity. I do not know. I guess I will never know. We stood there together in the courthouse hallway. Two people who had lost people they loved to Allison's sickening greed, and I felt a connection to her that I could not quite put a name to. Survivor's guilt. Maybe. Or just the quiet understanding that only comes from shared agony. Spring finally arrived in Texas with its usual dramatic flair. Torrential rain one day, blinding sunshine the next. The hardened earth slowly waking up from its long winter sleep. I tilled and planted the strawberry patch again. I made it twice as big as it was before. Mike helped me pack the soil. We did not bring up that summer when he was 7 years old. We did not need to. The grueling physical work itself was the conversation. Charles started coming back for Sunday dinners. Just him now. No Allison. The meals were much quieter, much simpler, but they were finally honest. We talked about small, mundane things. The shifting weather, the crop yields, Mike's solid plans to head back to the university in the fall. We were slowly learning how to be a real family again, without the toxic venom that had been secretly poisoning us for years. Peter drove up to the ranch one afternoon in late April, carrying heavy news. Allison finally caved. She took a plea deal. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. In exchange, she agreed to testify against everyone else involved in her network. She is never getting out. Robert, never. And with her sworn testimony. We just identified 3 more dirty county officials and 2 outside accomplices we had no idea existed. The entire criminal syndicate is burning to the ground. I poured him a mug of black coffee, and we sat out on the front porch, watching the distant hills turn a deep violet in the fading afternoon light. You know, Robert, Peter said quietly, you could have been killed half a dozen times during this whole mess. What you did out there, it was insanely dangerous. I know it was, but I had to do it. Why? Because it was mine to do. Because sometimes playing it safe means you slowly lose every single thing that actually matters. I made a choice. I decided I would rather fight back and risk dying on my feet than hide in the shadows and lose my life anyway. I looked out over my ranch, at the green shoots just starting to break through the soil. That sounds exactly like the Robert I remember from high school. Peter chuckled, stubborn as a Missouri mule and twice as tough. I laughed out loud. Mary Grace used to tell me the exact same thing. She was a very smart woman. Peter stood up, stretching his back. You take care of yourself. Robert, and if you ever need anything, you know exactly where to find me. Thank you, Peter, for believing an old man, and for stepping up when it mattered most. After his cruiser kicked up dust down the driveway, I sat alone on the porch as total darkness settled over the ranch. The vast land stretched out before me. So familiar, so incredibly precious, reclaimed through sheer grit and violent perseverance. I thought about all the men and women out there just like me, the elderly, the discarded, the chronically underestimated, people who had become helpless victims to predators like Allison, folks who had spent decades building hard lives, raising good families, earning their rightful place in the world, only to have someone decide it was much easier to rob them blind than to respect them. But I also thought about the immense strength that comes from surviving 67 years on this earth, the deep wisdom accumulated through brutal seasons of loss and beautiful seasons of plenty, that quiet understanding that patience is a deadly weapon, that silence can be highly strategic, and that old age is not a weakness at all. It is the pure distillation of everything you have ever learned about surviving. Allison was dead wrong about a lot of things, but her single greatest fatal error was assuming that being older meant being defenseless. She looked at my age and saw an easy mark. She looked at my southern kindness and assumed I was weak. She looked at my quiet, rural life and convinced herself I had absolutely nothing left to fight for. She never understood a basic truth. Those of us who have lived the longest have learned the most. We have survived the worst. We have developed razor-sharp instincts forged over decades of navigating a cruel world that rarely plays fair. Mike pushed the screen door open and stepped out onto the porch. He was carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate, exactly the way I used to make it for him when he was a little boy. A penny for your thoughts. Grandpa, I was just thinking about getting old, about what it really means. And what does it mean? It means you have finally earned the right to be underestimated, and the immense satisfaction of proving every single person wrong. It means you have learned that the loudest person in the room is almost never the strongest. That cold patience will always beat blind aggression. That quiet wisdom will always crush loud arrogance. You sound like a fortune cookie, Mike joked softly. I sound like a man who just spent 3 grueling weeks outsmarting a woman half my age who genuinely believed she was the smartest person in the entire state of Texas. He laughed, and it sounded good. It sounded like real healing. We sat there together as the first stars began to punch through the twilight, scattered across the darkening sky like tiny seeds just waiting to grow. The ranch was perfectly silent all around us. Solid, permanent, a towering testament to the stubborn people who had worked this dirt with their bare hands and point-blank refused to ever let it go. Out in the barn, I had hung my bright red winter jacket on a rusted iron hook. I could never bring myself to wear it again, not after everything that had happened. But I could not bring myself to throw it in the trash, either. It was physical proof of exactly how close I had come to losing my life. A chilling reminder that extreme vigilance matters, that absolute trust must be earned the hard way, and that sometimes a frantic warning from someone you love is the only thing standing between life and death. Tomorrow morning, I would start prepping the lower fields for planting. Charles was driving out to help me weld the broken irrigation system. Mike was going to scrape and repaint the side of the barn. We had real work to do, the kind of honest, brutal work that builds a legacy instead of destroying one. Work that creates something beautiful instead of stealing it. And in 6 months, I would walk into a federal courthouse and watch Allison Miller get formally sentenced to spend the rest of her natural life in a concrete box. I would look her dead in the eye one final time, and I would let her clearly see that I am still standing. I am still here, still fighting for every single day on this land that is mine by blood, by right, and by sheer resilience. But tonight, I just sat on the porch with my grandson and watched the dark completely blanket the Texas plains, feeling the deep, profound satisfaction of having survived something that was specifically engineered to destroy me. The ranch was finally safe. My broken family was healing, and I had learned something that a monster like Allison would never be able to comprehend. True power does not come from sociopathic manipulation, massive bank accounts, or calculated cruelty. True power comes from knowing exactly who you are, what you genuinely value, and what you are willing to die fighting for. It comes from ironclad patience, from waiting in the shadows for the perfect moment, and having the raw courage to strike hard when that moment finally arrives. It comes from living long enough to learn that quiet wisdom is the ultimate weapon, and that getting old is not a vulnerability to be exploited. It is an impenetrable fortress, built brick by brick over decades of surviving every horrible thing life throws at you. I am 67 years old. I buried a wife I loved dearly. I raised a son. I survived a calculated assassination attempt, and I completely destroyed a serial killer who made the fatal mistake of thinking I was just too old to fight back. And the truth is, I was only just getting started. The strawberry patch would bloom again this summer. Mike would be right there beside me to help harvest them, and we would sit in the dirt and eat strawberries until we made ourselves sick. Exactly like we did when he was 7 years old. Because that is exactly what survivors do. They remember the good times. They rebuild whatever was broken. They plant seeds for a better harvest. And they never, ever surrender their land without a war. 6 months later, I sat in the crowded gallery of the federal courthouse as they formally read Allison Miller's sentence. The judge spoke for 20 solid minutes about the staggering gravity of her crimes, the sickening pattern of preying on the elderly, the countless innocent lives she had ruined. Allison Mary Miller. Judge Dunn finally echoed through the silent room. For the charges of 4 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated wire fraud, forgery of official state documents, and the bribery of public officials. This court sentences you to consecutive life terms in federal prison, without the possibility of parole. The heavy wooden gavel slammed down like a gunshot. It was final. Allison turned around in her chair, her eyes scanning the crowd until she found me. Our eyes locked. I did not smile. I did not nod. I just stared right through her, letting her clearly see that I was still standing. I was still here. I was still strong. She broke eye contact first, as the armed bailiffs dragged her away in chains. Charles reached out and gripped my hand. It is over. Dad, it is really over. Yes. Son, it is over. Mike was sitting on my other side, his heavy hand resting on my shoulder. My family, broken, but actively healing, made infinitely stronger by the nightmare we had just survived. Out on the courthouse steps, a swarm of reporters was waiting for us. They shoved microphones in my face. They wanted an exclusive statement. They demanded to know how I felt. They wanted the sensational story of the brave grandfather who took down a ruthless serial killer. I kept my answer incredibly simple. Today, justice was served, not just for me, but for 11 grieving families who lost people they loved to this woman's bottomless greed. I hope what happened in this courtroom sends a crystal clear message. Our seniors are not easy targets. We have deep wisdom. We have real strength. And we have the absolute right to live out our golden years in peace and security. What would you say to other elderly people out there who might currently be victims of a similar fraud? A young reporter shouted over the crowd. I would tell them to trust their gut instincts. If something feels wrong, it almost certainly is. Ask hard questions. Demand help. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you are just too old to fight for what rightfully belongs to you. And to the families out there, to the sons, daughters, and grandchildren, listen to your elders. Respect their independence. And if you see any red flags that someone you love is being manipulated or exploited, act immediately. Do not wait for proof. My grandson saved my life because he trusted his gut. He had the raw courage to warn me, even when he did not completely understand the nightmare that was unfolding. That night, back out on the ranch, the 3 of us sat on the porch. Charles had picked up some barbecue brisket and sides from Mary Grace's favorite spot in town. Mike had mixed up a huge pitcher of sweet tea. It was an incredibly simple meal, but it was absolutely perfect. So, what are you going to do now? Dad, Charles asked, leaning back in his chair. Now that this whole nightmare is finally over, I am going to do the exact same thing I have always done. Work the dirt, take care of the ranch. Live my life. Are you not scared? After everything that went down out here, scared of what? Scared of living, Charles. I just came closer to death than I ever care to remember. But I survived it. I walked away. And I refuse to waste whatever time I have left on this earth living in fear. Mike raised his glass of sweet tea. To Grandpa, the bravest man I have ever known. Charles immediately raised his glass to join him. To Dad, the man who taught us that it is never too late to put up a fight. I raised my own glass, clinking it against theirs. To family, to the survivors, and to the stubborn fools who refused to surrender. We sat there together, drinking under the massive canopy of Texas stars, Epilogue. 5 years have passed since that freezing morning when Mike called me in a panic to warn me about the red jacket. Allison Miller is still rotting in federal prison, and she will be there for the absolute rest of her natural life. Appeal after desperate appeal has been systematically denied by the courts. The mountain of evidence was simply too overwhelming to ever overcome. John Sterling received 15 years behind bars for his central role in the conspiracy. Deputy White got 10 years. The other corrupt county officials received similar heavy sentences. The devastated families of the 11 victims received massive financial restitutions from Allison's liquidated assets. It is not enough. It will never be enough to replace a murdered loved one. But it is something. It is justice. Or at least, as much justice as a flawed legal system can possibly provide. Mike graduated with his engineering degree and now works for a major tech firm out in Austin. He married Anna last year in a beautiful outdoor ceremony right here on the ranch. They are incredibly happy. They are fully healed, and they are busy building their own beautiful life together. Charles and Rose ended up getting married, too. It was a very small, intimate ceremony with just close family. She has helped him heal deep wounds. She helped him finally forgive himself. She helped him become the strong man and the devoted father I always knew he had the potential to be. And me, well, I am still right here. I am still working the dirt. I am still waking up before the dawn. And I am still profoundly grateful for every single day I get to breathe the Texas air. The ranch is now officially designated as a legally protected heritage estate. We have ironclad legal safeguards in place that guarantee it will remain in the Miller family for generations to come. Mike will inherit it one day, and his children will inherit it after him. The land will endure, just like it always has, just like it always will. And if someday another monster like Allison comes along and tries to steal it away, well, I hope I have taught my family how to fight back just as ferociously as I did. Because that is exactly what we do. That is exactly who we are. We are the Millers, and we never, ever surrender.